Hello, super mutant snitches. Joe Rogan is a man of many talents. He's a millionaire podcaster, successful comedian, reality host, UFC commentator, avid hunter, pseudo-intellectual, and short king. For many, he's a hero, a provocateur, an ally of free speech and uncensored comedy. Even his critics must admit that the king of free thinkers is as powerful as he is loved. But despite all his talents and accomplishments, it's still fair to question how Joe and his podcast would survive the apocalyptic Mojave. Just think of the conspiracies and possibilities. What Kim-cooked guests could Joe invite, and what new truths can be pulled from the minds of the disease that litter the Vegas Strip? Well, in this video, we're going to see if you can beat Fallout New Vegas as the free-thinking comedian ringleader, Joe Rogan. But before we take the mushroom-fueled cold plunge, we need to establish the rules of this enlightening challenge. I must be Joe Rogan in mind, body, spirit, and height. I also, to the best of my abilities, must not do anything that Joe wouldn't do, including vaccines. As for weapons, things get interesting. Considering Joe is a qualified martial artist, we are going to be using our sausage mitts to strangle and donkey punch our victims. We can also use pull cues and hunting weapons, since Joe is a fan. I must also use recreational drugs when able, all in the pursuit of expanding my mind and physical prowess. That means buff out to get swole, and mid-tats for my big bald melon. Now, the goals of this challenge are as simple as Joe Rogan's friends. 1. We must track down worthwhile guests for the podcast, including Elon Musk and Jordan Peterson. 2. We must find fellow comedians, some talented, some being half-wits. 3. We must take revenge on Benny, or as Joe calls him, that bitch-stealing Carlos Mencia. And 4, and most importantly, find my Jamie. So with that, it was time to create the face and jawline of the podcasting god. Yeah, the New Vegas creator means most characters look like potatoes, but hey, just use that free-thinking mind to picture a better-made Joe. Despite failing to capture the majesty of Joe's testicle-looking head, I did manage to allocate stats I thought fitting. Strength, 9, because have you seen this beefcake? Perception, 6, because years of drugs have allowed Joe to enter a higher state of mental enlightenment. Endurance, 6, because anyone that can endure Bert deserves some damn points. Charisma, 9, because Joe is able to charm billionaires and murderers alike. Intelligence, 2, because, well, Joe is a self-admitted idiot. However, over the course of the playthrough, as we interview our esteemed guests, we will raise this to signify our growing intellect. Agility, 5, because while Joe is active and fit, he also struggles to reach the top shelf and ride most roller coasters. And lastly, luck, which I set to 3 because Joe and other alphas make their own luck. Afterward, Doc removes the lead from our noggin and our journey begins. Just so happens, Doc Mitchell can be our first podcast guest on the new and improved Mojave podcast. So Doc, what's your stance on vaccinations? Answer me, bitch! After debating the nuances of vaccinations and scrotum enlargement surgeries, I stepped outside. It was time for me to start collecting that Joe Rogan Spotify loot. That meant using and abusing a tried and true New Vegas exploit to give me some levels. As I leveled, I focused on 3 skills that made Joe the alpha comedian: unarmed, survival, speech. With these 3 skills, I was sure to collect a variety of podcast guests and take my revenge on that SOB Mencia. But first, I needed my shadow, my Robin, the beta boy to my alpha man, Jamie. Following the sounds of his distant cries, I made my way across the wasteland. Along the way, I decided to harness the Joe power and fist fight the wild game. You see, I only eat Deathclaw meat because Joe Rogan is on that carnivore diet, bitch. After fueling up on testosterone and tender roasted Deathclaw, I made my way to Black Mountain, where the mutant sewer leftists tried to cancel me with hit pieces and missile launchers. Despite their attempts to frame me as a conspiracy theorist, I managed to repel their cheap personal attacks and Taekwondo Joe their asses to the Shadow Realm. Within their cancel sex dungeon, I found Jamie, and we were finally reunited. And then we started kissing. As we made our escape, we fought against the non-binary Tabitha and her army of woke bloods. Despite being trained Mencia agents, they died at my hands as I played fisticuffs with their dumpy lumps. From here, it was time to get a weapon, one I could actually use to fight back against the liberal left and their cancel cuck boys. Making my way toward the city, I stumbled across the large lard Joey Diaz, who became my next podcast guest.
I swear, Joe, this one time I saw a homo deathclaw. He wasn't trying to cut or eat. He was trying to suck.
So what'd you do?
I blew a fart, Joe Rogan. I blew a fart that was so bad, it turned him straight.
After hours of stories that were neither exciting or enlightening, I made my way into the caves to shelter myself from his acidic farts. Once inside, Jamie located a super weapon that would serve me well, Pushy. This unarmed fister allowed me to showcase the almighty power of Taekwondo Joe. Plus, Pushy was a poetic name, because that's how everyone acts when they are trying to get on the podcast. I mean, damn, I could charge sexual favors and Brendan would be on his knees within minutes. After hours of travel and enough Deathclaw meat to power a muscle junkie, I had finally made it to the land of sin. Using some Spotify money, I bought my way into the Strip, hell-bent on finding the comedy scene of Vegas that could help me stand against Mencia. My first ally and next guest was the comedian and truth-teller, Billy Knight. However, despite Billy joining forces, I still needed more allies, which is why I went to see Mr. House, or as I like to call him, Elon Musk, just before the hair transplants. So, Mr. House, what's it like to own all of New Vegas? I see. Just one more question. Despite your state, does the old Tesla rocket still work? You know what I'm saying? Does it still fly? I knew it did, you dirty old dog. After discussing the dangers of Disney turning our kids gay and the details of the JFK assassination, it was finally time to face off against my mortal enemy, Mencia. Flashbacks of our former showdowns flood my memories. As I readied myself for battle, Jamie did his best to comfort me. And then we started kissing. As I entered the Tops Casino, once again the woke mob tried to cancel me, this time with bigot and racist remarks. Armed with statements that, in fairness, haven't aged well, they attempted to silence and deplatform me. However, despite the rather jarring accusations, they underestimated my power. I'm not racist. I'm a comedian, bitch. Armed with offensive jokes and a mean right cross, we beat the shit out of the cancel crew. Afterward, it was finally time to face Mencia and steal his life like he stole those jokes. While Carlos put up a good fight, in the end, he was a joke that became my punchline. After, I went to his room where I found a collection of femboy posters and a sex prisoner that he kept locked away. His name was Yes Man, and he gave me serious Theo Von energy, only less redneck. You ever licked a radioactive lollipop? You ever sucked a mouth of Mr. Mustache? You ever felt the Mojave breeze on your danglers? You ever beat up a meat goblin? You ever seen a dragon? You ever snorted Rad X from a bighorner's butthole? Well, then I say you ain't lived yet then, brother. What the fuck are you talking about? After spending the next 3 days speaking about all the things he's licked in his lifetime, me and Jamie knew we had to continue our journey. Despite Mencia being dead, my work wasn't done. I still needed to recruit allies for the podcast. I started with the boomers located in the Northern Air Base, a place that's bombed more than Brendan Schaub on the stage. These people were old, crusty, and out of shape. The place reminded me of Florida, and Bert. As I visited, I spoke to their leader, Pearl, who explained in great detail why this country was failing. You see, it's a misconception. Ivermectin isn't for horses. It's for cougars. Wow. Oh, shit. After discussing the complexities of trans athletes and hypothetical fights between werewolves and tigers, I set my sights on another guest. Heading to the east, I found the land of incels, commanded by Caesar, or as I like to call him, Jordan Peterson, just less Canadian. It's here he taught me the wisdom of exercise, inner strength, freedom of thought, and how to weaponize white privilege. He invited me into his homoerotic camp, and we dined on succulent bighorn hearts. Have you ever been Me Too'd? Of course not, Randy. But my name's Joe. You have no authority of my words. I have freedom of speech, Randy. But my name's Joe. Biologically speaking, your name is Dumb Monkey Homo Chimp. Randy's fine, I guess. After discussing the falsehoods of the moon landing and women's equality, my intelligence grew. From here, I made my way to the Thorn, where I was able to commentate some of the ongoing fights. However, instead of giving thoughtful analysis of a fight, I instead started to implement a new method, which involved communicating through a series of yells and grunts. Oh! After I decided it was finally time to speak with the NCR, a faction that had sheltered me for so long. However, over the years, the homeless and woke agendas had poisoned the land and the minds of the populace. Seeing California fall like this was a disgrace. It was once a place where a man could smoke weed, say offensive shit, then go to Hollywood orgies, but that time was long gone. The only thing left is washed-up actors that survived the Me Too war and unfunny, pretentious podcasters who leech off guests and use their platforms as a second form of therapy. I knew it was finally time to escape to greener pastures, to shed this California skin so I might ascend to a higher plane of understanding. Behind the local gym, I met a dude named Scotty who was like the Mojave Alex Jones, who hooked me up with some good shit to free me from the Matrix. We dined on psychedelics, discussed crisis actors, and watched a documentary about the Aztecs. As the night turned to morning, I felt the urge to continue my spiritual journey, using drugs and deepfake pornography of Jamie. I also learned of a far more powerful drug, death claw feces, and how it contained traces of DMT and protein, two of my favorite things. Jamie holds my hand as we start the mind-altering experience. And then we start kissing. And then we start tripping. As our bodies form into one singular consciousness, our galactic saviors arrive carrying the sacred Numerian texts. The next few days are a fever dream of chaos and sexual gratification as they probe me, unleashing the dormant Joe power inside. I have glimpses of a great battle against the woke bloods, once again trying to cancel me and my allies. Despite their attempts to restrain my words and thoughts, I overpower them using the freedom of speech. They are no match for my Taekwondo Joe, amplified by near-lethal amounts of buff-out and testosterone. Bathed in the blood of my enemies, I call forth the Joe-mageddon. As I lose myself to the conspiracies, to the powerful call of the primal wolf, to the greater knowledge and meaning of the stars, the image of Jamie saves me. He pulls me back from oblivion, and then we start kissing. Awakening, I find myself naked in the Mojave, a changed man. A sore ass is a small price to pay for freedom. I had done it. Using the power of martial arts, drugs, and allied minds, I was able to stop the California Republic, creepy Hollywood, and the woke bloods. I freed New Vegas from the grip of tyranny and ensured that comedy was once and for all free. So, can you beat New Vegas as Joe Rogan? Yes, if you can somehow manage to avoid being canceled, shot, stabbed, probed, and deplatformed. But one question still remains. Can you beat the DLC as Joe Rogan? If you want to see Joe expand the podcast in the new territories, invite new guests, and take some new drugs like the sacred Duda root, make sure to like this video and subscribe. Have a good one.